Cinematography is making choices about what something should look like, and what it should look like is something that helps to benefit the telling of the story. How you make those choices really boils down to the script and talking to the director and, developing those ideas over time. You have to have a certain understanding of how things work. The lenses, how images are recorded, lighting, depth of field. You really learn all these technical aspects of filmmaking just to get past them and to use them in a hopefully artistic way. A lot of times when you read something, the first choice you make is kind of a cliche. You're shooting 16 millimeter to give the feeling of Vietnam combat footage because that footage was all shot that way. I mean, that's one choice, but is that necessarily the best choice? If you look at a film like Gladiator, suddenly in the middle of this movie, it takes place a couple thousand years ago, there's a helicopter shot. And you go, wait a second, they didn't have helicopters at the time. But, that's not the point. The point is you are using whatever tools at your disposal to tell a story. And sometimes when you go against the grain on something, you actually achieve something much more profound and much more interesting. When you're shooting something, you don't want it to be like, where's Waldo? What am I looking at, You really want to guide the audience's eye towards what you want them to see. Lighting and composition is really important in that respect, as well as movement. I mean, camera movement can sort of move you across and suddenly realize a character standing in the background who you didn't know was there. I did this film called Being There with Hal Ashby. There are three people in the scene. It's Peter Sellers, Melvin Douglas, and Jack Warden. All the humor of that scene comes from being in the point of view of each of the characters. So there's a lot of coverage on that. There's over Peter to Jack Warden, there's over Peter to Melvin Douglas, there's over Melvin Douglas to Jack Warden. He really understood how he needed all those pieces to put it together and allow this serious drama to become a comedy. Everybody talks about cinematography being about, creating these beautiful images, but beautiful is really, it's a sort of tertiary aspect of making movies as far as I'm concerned. Stanley Kubrick would say that, a book that would make a really good movie is a book that just describes what's going on in the mind of the characters, and that he then had the job to figure out a visual way of explaining that. And if you look at the scene in The Shining when Jack Nicholson is writing a book, and you think he's discovered himself as a writer and everything, then there's that moment where Shelley Duvall goes up to look at what he's been writing, and all he's been writing over and over is all work and no play. Makes Jack a dull boy. The perfect visual representation of he's insane. And that's what we kind of do when we're making movies, is that we're finding this visual equivalent of whatever that emotion is with what the lens sees and what the camera sees and what the lighting shows us and where the eye goes. And I think that's the best representation of what cinematography is.